Charles, if I say the name Nobutashi, do you know who that is?
No, I don't.
Nobutashi was the creator, inventor of the Walkman, the digital camera, and the camcorder. So the three reasons we're able to talk like this today came from Nobutashi. Do you know what year Nobutashi died in?
1992.
2011.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Do you know who else died in 2011?
Nelson Mandela.
Steve Jobs. Do you know who Steve Jobs is?
Yes, I know who Steve Jobs is.
That's the point of our conversation. You have a great human in Nobutashi who did incredible things, died the same year, yet nobody knows who he is. And we're going to get into it coming up next. So that's the lead-in, but here's what sparks today's conversation. I was talking to one of your clients who had very nice things to say about you on our discussion this morning, Charles at Tint World, who also said that he watches Fran X on his big screen movie theater, which I don't know that you or I on a big screen is something that any human being wants to see.
We're entertaining for him. He just laughs at us.
Okay. So, but what I did, I listened to Charles's story, and the end of him telling it, I went to his website and I did find, Control F, and I typed in the word Charles, and it only appeared 7 times. I said, Charles, your YUI Now is entrepreneur's #1 automotive business. I go, but the story you just told me about rejection and being a franchisee and finding success there, but feeling like your voice got lost, and then you being a Ray Kroc and finding this Tint World business and saying, let me take this to the next level, and you putting it in there, and the energy and innovation. I was like, your story is nowhere to be found. I go, but I guarantee you people buy from you. And I said, tell me your sales process. And he starts talking about all his team goes, and then he's the last conversation, and he has this personal conversation with the human. I go, that's who they're buying from. I go, the widget's irrelevant. You could say you're opening up a coffee shop tomorrow and people are going to follow you because of who you are. I go, that's what was so amazing about Wendy's is you had Dave Thomas behind the counter. Ray Kroc was not the founder of McDonald's. He was the franchise creator, but he was a face behind the business. And so I wanted to lead in with the Nobutashi scenario because I think it's deeply impactful. It doesn't mean Sony is a poor brand by any means. It just means it's not Apple. And still today, Steve Jobs is Apple. And so I think about that, and I think about Charles's story. And so now comes the question, how important is, in your opinion, is the personal story as you intertwine it in with a franchise brand?
So using Charles as an example, I think the important thing for franchise brands to really dive into is genuine story. So when you speak with a human, a person like Charles, leading Tint World, you're going to get to witness him as a passionate, dedicated human focused on amazing detail, right? And that doesn't become fluff. Then you look at their model and you see the detail and precision of their retail operation, supply chain. For good reason, humans genuinely connect a genuine leader as a reflection on their product or service. So it's everything. And it's funny because Steve Jobs was obsessed with Sony. In fact, I read an article where he was enamored with Sony employees wearing uniforms in the production line and how they did all that. But so, Nick, as we've been deciphering Fran X and Fran Community and we speak and I have conversations with, let's go to the other end of the spectrum. You have a Tint World where they have a very refined system and process, very refined offering, tons of validation, right? And there you still have opportunity where the leadership or Charles, there's even more room there to tell that personal story. And then when you go to the emerging brands, you don't see any semblance of it. It's like the forgotten asset in all of franchising.
Well, other than the brand that you've mentioned that you guys work with, Outsiders Coffee.
Yeah, like superstars.
What does their coffee taste like?
I don't care. Now, but I know it's going to be good. I know it will be good. The same way I know I will get great service at a Tint World because I know their leadership.
That's it.
And they believe, right? They believe in something.
Right.
And they
Have you ever even tasted Outsider Coffee?
No, I've
Right.
used the mugs. They're great.
Right. But the point is, you're a brand fan.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, so that, right, you're leading me right into the important point, which is where you're getting at, because they believe in something, right? And then that connects at a personal and human level. I think the most powerful thing a brand can speak about is what they believe in. It's so funny. I was up early this morning. I was my quiet time sitting outside, and I'm writing notes of like why on our firm website we don't have a why us video. And it's always because I'm scared of it, right? And so I'm writing notes and I'm speaking with Melissa on our team, and I'm just focusing on number one, I want to focus on what we believe, right? But not talk about us. And it's unsettling. But when you do it and you get to that personal story, you better make sure it connects with your follow through. You better make sure it's genuine, but you need to go wrestle with this as a brand because it's where the opportunity is at and it's open space that no one's taking.
Here's the extension of it. And this is going to sound self-serving because of the business that I have, but it's what I believe. And so it's not me selling a service. It's me actually giving away the secret sauce that I think is deeply valuable. If I search for franchise opening in Google News and look at releases or news hits led by PR agencies, it always says Charles's Hot Dogs opens in Chicago. And I see that as such a missed opportunity. Do I think supply and demand impacts franchise growth? I do. Like when you have the fear of missing out, it can force the hand of a prospective buyer to move faster in the sales process. But ultimately, people buy from people, and people buy because of people. And the like me ends up being such a valuable piece in the toolkit that when that story turns into former franchise attorney risks it all and opens up a hot dog stand, now what that does is it creates a persona. And so you have the persona of other attorneys that might be like, oh yeah, I'm sick of being a lawyer. I want to own my own hot dog stand. You'll also have other human beings that say, well, that's kind of cool that Charles did that. I want to do this. And so that's all to say, like, I think that's one of the biggest missed assets when it comes to franchise marketing and franchise PR is the value of your franchisees. Charles, what you just said, yeah, you struggle to tell your why you why now, but in the sense of if you're example of a franchise or franchisee, you are letting your clients define your why you why now by giving them a platform to tell their personal stories. And so it's sometimes okay for the franchisor to skip out on their personal story as long as they're telling the stories of their franchisees. Now, if you're missing both of those opportunities, now you're playing your competitive landscape or your point of differentiation is how much it costs to get into your business and how much you can make, nothing else. And that's where you want to blur those lines with humans, validators, and their stories to help lift up some of the growth that you're trying to accomplish.
Because I mean, again, it's always important to confirming the integrity in all of this, because buyers and other humans are looking at these stories as little breadcrumbs to validate and authenticate what's genuine. And so the other thing that we all overlook, every business owner, is the cumulative effect of it all, right? Because it bleeds into your own corporate culture. We did reviews recently, and this is not fluff. One of the biggest surprises for me, and it was so positive, was when, one of the questions I was asking is what makes you happy here in working with this organization or company? And some of the consistent responses were about seeing the excitement in clients when smart, experienced franchise development teams go out of their way to thank us. And also that we're not just motivated by the dollars and the legal, but that client journey and helping them. And it sounds like fluff, but it's not. And it was more profound actually hearing it from whether it's attorneys or other team members. And it was very moving for me, because I'm a big believer in culture when it's real. And I didn't even fully understand the impact of it. Even little innocuous things like FranX, like one team member brought up that what motivates him, and he's not involved in FranX, but just seeing it, right? And that just blew me away. So what I would say is, when you're telling that story, whether it's the founder story, right? Like someone like Charles, I mean, that's an amazing story, because everyone validates, like, not only do I want to be like that, I trust a person like that, right? And it turns out it's a smart decision, right? I've never met anyone more precise and more focused. And on the other hand, if you're validating through your franchisees or both, that really influences when your team goes through and has those conversations. What you're going to find out is what those franchisees say turn into significant motivation for your team, and it just gains its own gravity, and it's powerful. And that's, when you talk about Steve Jobs, that's part of the power there, right? It's that human element.
Well, and the blueprint's written. I mean, take law firms. What's the first thing a law firm does when they bring on a new lawyer?
I don't know. We're not like the law firm.
Well, not bigger law firms, more institutional law firms. They send the hiring announcement to the Business Journal. And why do they do that? Because they want their peers, the peers of that hire, to look at it. And what it does, it just creates a consistent recruiting of, all right. And the formula is easy. It's what college did they get their degree from, who they are as a person, and what that does, it humanizes it. It now added a human, insert person has joined this law firm. That person then shares it on their LinkedIn, which creates exposure to that law firm and to other people. And then it hits the alumni network. But the point there, I think that's whether it's being done on purpose, it actually humanizes those law firms when they go through those processes. And so sometimes you don't have to, my analogy is, or my line is, you don't have to always go to China, meaning you don't have to travel to China today. If that's a far trip. You might start by going to Milwaukee. And going to Milwaukee for a franchise brand is like, all right, hey, I'm gonna celebrate someone on my team in a LinkedIn post once a week. That's just your internal team. Now you might turn that into, I'm gonna add in a layer of celebrating a franchisee. Just saying I appreciate you and putting that on there. Those are the little things that start humanizing your story. Add the personal story to your business. It might not be yours. It could be someone else's, Charles, and I admire him for this. He always posting dinners that he has with franchise candidates. He has birthdays in the office. He shows the cake on his Facebook page. He was very proud of walking through the home that he was building and showing the people that he's connected with. Like, I've worked hard to build this. I think that's all personal story, and I do think that's ultimately why his brand has grown, is because of him. And so, if I have to define the most critical thing for a franchisor, once you have a good business, like this, a great personal story can sometimes mask a poor business. I can instantly go to a brand that the personal story of the CEO is all out there, and it masks the depth of the business. That's dangerous. My recommendation is build something that is sustainable and strong for your franchise owners, then attach the personal story. That's the recipe if you want to have really, really good growth. Those two elements.
And you need to you need to build that foundation, right? So as you're doing that, that's the opportunity and time. Check in with your team, have a meeting, really dive into what you believe, what you deliver, and what's really unique about your brand in a very real way. And then you move from there.
Yeah, agree. So you're gonna do your Why You Why Now video?
Yeah, well, so we outlined 3 components, right? What we believe and the story, but and then the technical. So the way I'm doing is reverse engineering it. We're working on what would a deck look like, a presentation if we were presenting it, and then we could organize it. My biggest concern is I don't want it to be about me, but it's about our role in that journey. So I will commit that before September, it'll be on the homepage of our website.
Well, this is not a live site, and
Well, good. Then we'll just keep delaying it.
No, I'm showing this.
Oh.
Watch. This will be our new site, and what I chose to do. I don't know. Can you hear volume if I push that? Can you hear that?
No.
Okay. Well, what I ended up doing in ours was I wanted to tell a story. So my line is, we used to be this. And I decided, like, there's former people that worked at our organization built into this. And I decided that it was important for our journey and for our storytelling to talk about where have we come from and where have we got into and where are we going. And I also decided that it was important for us to put ours front and center, because I do think it's a form of storytelling that websites need. I give you a lot of shit about your website comment or your video comments, like you need a video for all this stuff. But I do agree with you. I think video, photo, graphic design, written word are all elements that, if those can work together to frame what your story is and clearly define what your purpose is, then it can help someone who doesn't know you or doesn't have the ability to have this conversation. It can help them have a point of view as an outsider on who you are and what you care about.
Well, and it's a gut check too. It's like you're broadcasting that to the world, and so you're going to make sure that everything you're saying has integrity and follow through.
Question came up: how much do you focus on audience and messaging when defining your personal brand? It's vital for B2B or B2C marketing, but in your experience, does it add value in personal marketing? Thoughts?
Well, first, this is a relevant question, so thanks for it. Focus on audience and messaging. So personal brand, B2B, B2C. I think you always have to start with your audience, but in a genuine way, right? So if you're a consultant, if you're a service provider, if you're selling a retail product or service, you need to reverse engineer. Who are we doing this for? What are the benefits and transformations? So I think you always need to start with that audience from the perspective of what you're offering, how you're delivering value, how do you transform their lives?
Yeah, I think you can go deep with your audience, or you can go broad with your audience. So like we've had Paul Pickett from Wild Birds Unlimited.
Yeah.
He goes very deep with his audience. He knows you must love birds in order to become a franchise owner with our brand, because you will be operating your unit. So he's very dialed in on who his audience is. His audience has to be bird lovers. Now, what could a brand like Paul do if he wanted to go wider? He would say, we're going to focus in on entrepreneurs, or we're going to focus in on the pet wellness industry, and we're going to broaden it out. So I think it's important to understand who your audience is. Like, frankly, FranX is primarily our hyper deep audience are people in franchising. But if we go wide, it's still for anybody who's entrepreneurial or founders that are trying to find a nugget on how they can impact growth. And so there's just being aware of it. I don't know that you have to start there as a personal brand, because I just think being willing to be vulnerable as a person in a social setting and know, like, you can see it. Like we post this video, it might have like 3 interactions, but you look at the views, it might be 250. And so what we know, like Charles never comments, not you, Charles Tintworld Charles. Charles never comments. He doesn't like it. He doesn't share it. But he said, I watch it in my movie theater. And so we know that the dialed in audience is greater than what the interactions are as our personal brand. And we're willing to be vulnerable like this, unscripted, live, unedited, and try to give some sort of value back to whoever might find this. Can I push my button?
And that was a good idea.
Just the idea of you recording that.
No, I need more of those.
The and you know, for those listening to this podcast and you feel like you may be stuck on direction, reach out, check out FranX. You could get some free access to our masterclass, which really will help you pull and extract your personal story and your brand story. So that's important.
I didn't nail that. I knew you were going to say something emotional or deep there at the end. So I tried finding a quick music thing so that, like, Howard Stern used to be really good at this. Like when someone was like getting emotional, they would play like emotional music to make them cry. And it was an ongoing thing. I was trying to find it. I didn't have it.
Well, I appreciate you trying.
Is that one better?
No, but it is sad though. It's very sad when you know, I was speaking at a conference recently, and you know, an amazing human, excited about her business, and we reviewed her website. She asked me to put it live on stage, and it turns out it was a retail business. I won't say in what segment, but you read the headline in the top mast area. You didn't know what the business was in. It was just generic commentary, and there wasn't that. Well, they did have founder way down, but it's the opportunity that's missing for so many emerging brands.
Yeah, that's right.
I think we covered it, Nick.
Got a thank you. Look at that. We got good feedback this week.
But Jean's just a kind human, so she feels bad for us.
Well, I get to talk to Jean later on today, so.
Okay.
That's that. Another episode of FranX in the books. Hope you got some value out of today's lesson, students. See ya.